Like, I want to come off as a gentle giant. Like, yes, can I be capable of violence if needed, in a aspect of protection, whether it be for my family or myself or my friends? Then yes, I want to be capable of that kind of thing, but outwardly show that kind of humbleness or kind of soft touch, so to speak, with people, even in a social setting, whether we're out in public or not.
In a world that often pulls us apart, More in Common brings us back to what matters. Hosted by Gerren Taylor and Keith Richardson, this isn't your average podcast. It's a challenge to think deeper, question louder, and grow further. At More in Common, we work with NFL teams, tech companies, and professionals across industries to improve communication and foster compassion. And with a focus on emotional intelligence, we aim to bring a wealth of experience to help you navigate the complexities of human connection. We've never been more connected and yet more isolated. We want to explore the roots of that tension and offer a way back to what we all need: real human connection. Enjoy the show.
Really, I think it's been super awesome. So
yeah, it has.
Like, what I love about these 2 episodes is, the conference call backgrounds that we've got cooking.
We're all Zoom professionals.
It works out. Hey, I'm working from home. You guys don't want to see my background.
I know. I usually let everybody see my white walls and the pictures I still haven't hung for some reason.
Healthy.
But
I mean, I got baseball memorabilia, hockey memorabilia. I got a half torn apart hockey bag on the floor behind me somewhere. It's not very,
you don't
very professional. Right?
Don't look behind the curtain on the Wizard of Oz, please. We're back. This is the More in Common podcast. I'm Gerren Taylor with Keith Richardson. This week we have again Zach Amatore, who's the COO and tax advisor at Amatore & Co., a family company with over 40 years in business, where Zach has taken over in the last 2 years. Before that, he was an EMT. He's also a baseball manager. I love baseball. We'll talk about that separately. But
men's baseball. Yeah.
And that's how Keith and Zach met. But we were talking last week, and Keith, I know you had a burning question to jump off with, so get it.
Yeah, I do. First, like last week, thank you for diving into that and sharing the experience. Like, I know the relationship was you and I, but a lot of my approach to navigating that was very much rooted in all of the things that we talk about for the last year, especially here on this podcast. So just appreciate you sharing that. Now, as we've kicked off this year, one of the things that we've explored with sociologist Nick regarding the role of men and masculinity in society, and trying to figure out how to define it. And I will say, for our audience and just clarity here, one of the things that we find to be the important thing is just exploring the discussion, because to define it is it's hard, right? It creates barriers. And I think one of the things that's interesting about you in general is you have this awareness. You've navigated the emotional components, and yet you also are rooted in some traditional masculine approaches to things: yelling, right? Aggression, and putting that out there. So I am just curious, from your perspective, as you've gone on this journey with yourself to improve your marriage, to improve the team, to now being, running a business and in growing it and having to lead and manage people. How do you find the nature of your traditional masculine, I guess, experience in the world, and how you actually approach it in a very different way, from an emotional awareness and a sensitivity and a kindness that might not fall within those traditional rules, if you call it?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Curious.
Well, a lot of it, at least early on in my life, at least, a lot of it stems from, nature versus nurture, right? And there's a lot of that involved with a lot of folks when we're talking about masculinity and, whether or not it can be toxic or not, and that kind of sense. And like I'd mentioned before, a lot of us kind of pull from what we already know. That pulls from the nurture, or necessarily, maybe even the nature of our environment, or the product of our environment that we're placed in. My dad was always a tough guy on his kids, and he's still tough on us, but that in its sense is a good thing. I've learned a lot from my dad being tough on us, and there's good reason for that. He'd always be tough on, he still is tough on us, right? Hey, I get chewed out by him all the time. Still as a 30-year-old adult, just, so that goes to show, like, hey, you may be an adult in your own right, but your parents are still your parents. But then, like I had mentioned earlier, coaching, every coach I've had has always been one of those kind of guys who would just drill into you, if you made a mistake, or, something happened, or the whole team. I don't know if you guys have seen the video that, what was it, to the Tennessee coach coming into the locker room after they got blown out of a game, and he was like, "Look, you guys aren't going to care about this in the next 5 minutes, so I'm going to get this off my chest," and just proceeds to rip into him about it. Um, so a lot of that kind of comes from that in and of itself, just my environment, being a product of my environment. But then, meeting my wife when I'm 18 years old, getting through and meeting new people, from, not my hometown, and not only, where I'm from, but moving to Cleveland after, my wife got a teaching job, and at the time I was an EMT. Is like, I can work anywhere. Like, let's go. We moved up here. We met a lot of great people, Keith, yourself included, and a lot of that is changing the environment, right? Um, just being a little bit more aware of not only what's going on with me, because I've always been somebody, again, who's been very self-aware, like, but at that time it's like, yeah, I'm self-aware, like, I know, like, I'm the biggest asshole on the block, like, certainly. Like, anybody,
I
yeah,
do it proudly, damn it.
right, yeah, I mean, you could ask any one of my friends, what they thought of me, and they would tell you, like, yeah, he's an asshole, but he's going to tell it like it is. And he's not going to hold his punches, And I was always that kind of guy who would, hey, this is it. Here it is. Here's the best non-biased opinion I can give you on what I'm seeing. And if it hurt, it hurt. I did
And
not
so,
care.
you've described a lot your relationship with your parents and your dad, and how they're still capable of pushing your buttons, and you're taking over the family business from your dad. So how has that work and what you've been working through changed how you carry that responsibility?
Yeah, certainly. It's been tough, right? Because now I'm not his dad. He's also the man. He's the boss. The buck stops with him when it comes to work. Um, and there's been plenty of times where, and he's done a lot of growth too over the past 2 years since I've started working for him, and I can see it. My dad's never been the kind of person who would come to you and apologize, right? Especially if he thought he was fully in the right, didn't matter, right? Um, you know,
I'm married to one of those.
right, yeah. So it was interesting the other day. We had gotten into a pretty big argument about, bringing on a new employee. What's our cash flow look like? Like, can we afford this? What's our situation? And we had gone back and forth on it, and we pretty big fight about it. Um, and at some point in time, that fight was no longer, CEO or partner and partner, or, employee boss, right? It turned into, this is a father son fight. Now we're just going back and forth. And the next day, like, we had a chance to cool off, and we had talked about it again, and we had both come to the table and just apologized. And, like, I was taken aback. I was like, holy shit, my dad's never apologized to me ever. So it was like, it was refreshing. He had a chance to realize, like, hey, I'm not coming to this as your son, and just being blind in the business sense of like, yes, you have great points. I'm agreeing with you on those points. Here's my responses to those particular points. And it's not that I'm trying to poke a loophole in it. It's just that I'm trying to say, well, there could be a potential solution for those issues that you see that maybe we can explore. And he took that seriously. And so we've been working together to explore bringing on a new employee and that kind of stuff. And it's like,
Do you think the work on yourself is reflexive in that sense? Like, do you think that you working on how you approach these conversations allowed your dad to finally apologize to you over something?
maybe I'd like to take credit for it, but my mom's got a big part in that too, because I know she's in his ear a lot as well when it comes to the business sense of that. As much as I would love to take credit for anything, I don't necessarily know if I can take that credit, because we didn't really dive into the why. It was
I think
more,
that you should give yourself some credit in the sense that how you approach that conversation always makes the other person look at themselves, right? Like
yeah,
if they're yelling and you're going, okay, well, I've heard what you said, and you're maintaining your cool and you're making straight points that aren't just diving into that back and
sure.
forth, right?
And a lot with my dad has to do with, so I've been told by several people in my life, my wife included, that I have an issue with tonality, right? So a lot of times when I may be
that is a fact.
I may be like coming back to you with something that I'm thinking, okay, well, what about this? But I sound like I'm yelling at you. Or I sound like I'm throwing a punch. And it's like, I've always had, that has been the hardest thing for me to control is my tonality. Um, so it always seems like I'm fighting. And like I have to explain to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I genuinely, I'm not fighting with you on this. Like, I'm serious. Like, I could say something that he doesn't like, disagrees with, and like that kind of, that's the spark that sets the fuse. And then we're going back and forth on, I'm like, I agree. Like, I don't know how else to get you to understand. Like, I agree with you. Like, I'm not trying to argue here. Uh, and that's happened in a lot of instances, with other folks, with my wife, even like, hey, I'm not like, I don't want you to think I'm fighting with you. It's not a fight. This is a conversation. Let's keep it a conversation. Um, but that's been probably one of the biggest challenges that I've had, personally, with Natalie. Like, when we first started working on it, like I had to tell my wife, I was like, listen, like, this isn't going to happen overnight. I need you to listen to my words and understand the words I'm saying, and don't listen to the sound of my voice, because I may sound mad, but I promise you, maybe it's just because I'm passionate. I don't know. Keith might be able to tell you if it's just because I'm coming at it from a passionate take. And when I get excited, I get bigger and I get loud, and I'm Italian, and that's how we do. We talk with our hands and this and that and the other. So, but again, that stems back to nature versus nurture. I am a product of my environment. Um, and breaking that is difficult, especially when it's hard to change your environment in the family sense per se, right? Your family is your family. You can't choose.
I think, as an aside, that idea of passion and anger are so easily conflated, especially if you're not used to being around passion. I have a hard time with it with even coworkers sometimes, where the passion comes out as such frustration or irritation, and it's really not. It's just a passion, and it's hard to internalize. I think some of the things that you said that are such a great carry on and an example of the conversations that you haven't heard yet, from with the sociologist Nick, is the impact of environment and how it influences how we show up socially in the structures that we imbibe or show into. But I think what you're also demonstrating is this example of, and we talk about it specifically because I think the conversation just needs to continue around the roles of men, is
Mhm.
that adaptability, right? Like, you show up for the environment that is needed for you in that moment, but it's also not easy and it's never perfect. You got into a shouting match with your dad, and then you had to come back to the table and not let that just carry forward, and you had to reconcile, and he had to come to the table too. What I'm curious about, and what all I say all of this is, like, I think about something that you said. When I was growing up, my friends would just be like, "Oh yeah, he's the biggest asshole in the room." Garen asked this last time, like, do other people notice? Have other people noticed? What has that dynamic been like for you with male friends that grew up with you, with people that even on the team, right? Or in the environment around people who might have known you to be one thing and now see you differently. Like, has it been positive? Like, what's the social impact have been in a lot of your long-term relationships?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, for the most part, it's been pretty positive. Whether or not they want to admit to it is another story. But for the most part, like from what I've observed, for how they react, or for how maybe they approach me, like we're starting to see that more, right? They're starting to become more comfortable in approaching me, which was something like a lot of times that they wouldn't do. Um, One of my best friends from high school would never really tell me like whether or not he was dating a girl in particular or anything like that, because like he always had that concern that girls hated me, right? When I when I was younger. And it's just the way the cookie was, just because of the way I was. Um, but he would never really approach me because he was always concerned about like, I never know what you're gonna say, right? And that might, push her away and this and that and the other. And it's like, sure, I understand that. I get that. He's finally started, talking to me about like, hey, like I'm talking to so and so, like maybe we should get together and, double date. You guys can meet, this kind of stuff, that kind of stuff. And it's like it's starting to become more present, I guess, in the relationships I've had, on both ends of the spectrum, to where I'm able to approach them and ask them things that maybe I knew that they were uncomfortable with in the past, but now I know like they'll more than likely be willing to participate just because of them feeling comfortable in approaching me on different subjects that maybe they wouldn't have in the past.
Mm.
Do you feel like your
Gee,
confidence has changed? Like your confidence in yourself has changed from having some of these skills?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I've always been one of those kind of confidence guys, but maybe before it was a little bit more cockiness, and those two kind of toe a fine line, right? Um, there has been times where I've noticed, like, if I'm getting a little bit too confident, sometimes I'll ask for an ego check. Like, a lot of times, like, I'll tell my wife, like, a hundred times, every time we go play ball, every time we go to hockey or something, she'll come watch. I ask her, I'm like, hey, please don't glaze me on this. Like, how am I doing really? Like, do I look like I'm really doing it? Or, are you just telling me, yeah, you look great because you love me, right? Don't take bias out. Tell me. Tell me if I suck, right? I want that feedback because everybody needs to be humbled every once in a while. And that's just something that I constantly crave is just some kind of feedback, whether or not it's good or bad, just so I know where I'm at, because sometimes it's hard to reality check yourselves. But there's times where like I'll notice like, hey, my confidence is a little bit too much. I may be sailing across that line. Let's have a conversation with somebody and see what's
Pull
going on.
back, pull back, pull back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do you ever find, and by the way, I have personal experience on that one. Like, hey Keith, tell me about my swing. What's going on? What's wrong with this thing? Why can't I do it? Um, and so I'm curious about something because there is a physical appearance, right? It's gruff. You got the beard. You're just, you look like that kind of guy, and you have an aggressive tonality, right? Like, it's very direct. Do you find How do you find people receiving you in these spaces, especially now that you've gone on this journey for the last 5 years? Like, and it's a continued journey. Like, to me, I say 5 years, I'm like, oh, it's not a long time,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's,
Yeah. It's not.
but it still also is a long time, right? To see some of these things materially manifest in life. I'm curious if you recognize that, and this plays into that whole, oh, you look like a traditional man, right? And you've got that aggression, like, but oh, you're not that in
Kind of
in
that gentle
entirety in its
giant approach.
entirety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife would tell you I'm a teddy bear. I don't know if she would say that 5 years ago. Um, I don't really ask my friends on that particular take. Really, that kind of comes from more personal
You don't
relationships.
snuggle with Chico.
Yeah.
Poor
Um,
Chico's missing out on the
so
teddy bear
so
snuggles.
my biggest thing is always kind of trying to take that gentle giant approach. Right? I'm a big guy, right? I know it can be intimidating. And it's not that I'm a big guy just because I'm fat, but I'm tall, I'm burly, like I'm built like a brick house, right? So I know when I kind of take that approach on some people or I come off hot, may not be viewed as, oh, he's just angry. It may be viewed as like, oh shit, he might be trying to kill me. Like, and I don't want to put that off. Um, that's not the intent, right? My biggest, I guess, thought process behind it is, at least when I'm in public and public setting, or even in my marriage, like I want to come off as a gentle giant. Like, yes, can I be capable of violence if needed, in a aspect of protection, whether it be for my family or myself or my friends? Then yes, I want to be capable of that kind of thing, but outwardly show that kind of humbleness or kind of soft touch, so to speak, with people, even in a social setting, whether we're out in public or not. That's just kind of one of the things that I kind of strive for, and like, that's a daily thing. Like whether I'm having a bad day or not, I always kind of try to touch just a bit softer, is kind of how I think about it, as we move forward. And that's just something that's a daily thing.
Was there something that you had to let go of in order to start this? Was there something that you had, like
Mm.
a way that a way you thought of yourself that you had to let go of in order to become this teddy bear?
No, I don't think so. Um, because like I said, I mean, I'm still me, right? Um, I don't have to really change who I am in a sense of the things that I like, or I don't have to put down the things I'm passionate about. Um, but it's more or less just taking a softer approach. Like, again, time and place. Like, there is absolutely a time where you can get big and loud and boisterous and have fun with it. But also, like, that time and place usually isn't off the rip. There's a few relationships I've made since I started playing hockey, because I started last year. And Keith knows this. I was 440 pounds when I started playing ice hockey again. I mean, my weight was getting out of control. That stems from working night shift forever and a day since I was 18. Food isn't exactly the greatest thing in the middle of the night when you're hungry and you're on the ambulance, and Taco Bell's the only thing that's open. But I got up to 430 pounds. I started playing hockey again. Um, and I met some new friends along the way. And there were some that we clicked instantly, and I could bring that passion out. I could bring that kind of spark out to the table quickly. And then there were some where I had to be a little bit more like, okay, maybe they're not quite as like, I'll try it. Don't get me wrong. I'm never afraid to try to push the boundary a little bit, mostly just to see if they can hang. But like, always be cognizant of like, is that something that they respect? And if they don't respect it, then I want to respect them, and kind of bring that back in. And then there were some where I could just like fire away, and like we banter back and forth, and it'd be great, and friendships would kind of build from that. I personally like those kind of friendships because like we can go back and forth faster, the relationship grows faster. You know, I met the guy one day, the next week we're best friends, we're brothers on the bench. We're backing each other up on the ice if guys start to get a little chippy and that kind of thing. But um again, I'm not opposed to folks who want to take things slower or softer. That's just the nature of the beast. People have been hurt before, and they don't want to get hurt again. And I get that kind of thing. And I feel like a lot of, when it comes to relationships, or even touching back on the masculinity thing, like a lot of it in the sense, I feel like people are, it's a defense mechanism, right? People
Yeah.
don't want to get
Mm.
hurt.
Mm.
And I hate to say it, but without great loss, there is no great love.
Well,
Mm.
that's kind of where I was going with my next question as we come to the close of this week. You framed up your experience with coaching, the nature versus nurture, especially in masculinity. And what I notice about some of the things that we talk about, you know, both with Nick and in this conversation, is it's really about modeling, right? Like people need models of masculinity that don't have to be toxic, that can exactly say what you're saying, right? There's a time and a place to be large and aggressive, and there's a time and a place where you can be soft, and that doesn't change you being a man. You're still a
Right.
man, right? Like at the end of
Right.
the day. But what do you think, connecting that cycle breaking idea, connecting that to what you think now about the legacy that you're creating, both in the family business or for whatever family that you have? How do you feel like that's changing and what comes next?
Good
As far as what
question.
comes next, like I couldn't tell you. You know what I mean? I've got big ideas. I've got great ideas that I think they're great. Other people might not, but it's really again a day-to-day thing. You have to take it one day at a time. We were all kids once, and we all wanted to grow up fast. I feel like 90% of the population wishes they were still kids, myself included. Yeah, things are just easier. You know what I mean? But
Well, they forced this adulthood thing on me. I didn't ask for it.
Yeah, they someone just like go be an adult.
yeah, 18 now, enjoy it. But no,
Yeah.
mine was kind of I brought that upon myself. But like at the same time, like realizing like, hey, we can slow down. We don't always have to be driving the future. We can take the future day in and day out, day at a time, step at a time. Um, because our goals and aspirations and things like that may change over time. Um, before when I was a kid, I was dead set on being a pilot, dead set on, flying fighter jets for the military and having a blast in those things. Things change, right? I became a paramedic, and then I finally did go get my pilot's license on the civilian side, and now I'm working for my dad's business and doing taxes and tax planning and things like that, and I'm loving every minute of it. Do I still fly? Yeah, absolutely. But I have that's on my own time. But that's not to say that I'm not fulfilled in my day-to-day job, right? And that's just something, in my opinion, you have to take one day at a time, and there's no preset or determined fate, so to speak, on how you handle things.
Well, I have to say, Zach, we'll close this up by first appreciating you willing to come on. Like I think in every area of life, we like to know that the things that we do have a positive impact on others, and being able to have a testimonial example of
Absolutely.
a lot of the things G and I talked about so many times. And I mean, you see it in other people, but to be able to articulate it the way you have, not only that, like to present yourself in a way and have a thing at a time when we're really looking to nuance and understand, like, yes, there are people out there that say this is what a man is, and this is what a man is, and this is what a man is, and to reflect to this idea of emotional agility and social agility, and still being true to who you are, growing and failing and succeeding and doing all of the things that we all do that we can't capture in 2 weeks of 30-minute conversations. I think you embody that really well. I'm super, like, I as a grown man, I have a hard time saying I'm proud of other grown people, whether they're men or women. Or I am super proud of the work that you've put in to, hey, look, let's put it out there. Yes, it's rec baseball, but you won the divisional championship this year, on the year, of course, that I stopped playing. So, what
Uh,
joy that gives me.
It may have
But
been the
like
lowest
that,
divisional one, but hey, hardware is hardware.
hey, you want, like, you put
every
something
brick, man, every
together,
brick. You're one of the
and
bricks, Keith.
it's the steps to continue to move, and now you're running a business, like, for all intents and purposes. And when I first met you, like, everything was about being a pilot, and that was the future, to what you just said, that flexibility, the taking it day to day. So, I just want to say thank you for having the willingness to share the story of your journey, because I think it's super important that we see more examples of people that are going through it, because we all are.
And I got one more for you before we get out of
Yeah,
here.
certainly.
So somebody's listening to this. they see themselves in you, in your before, what do you have to them? What do you want them to know?
Patience is a virtue. Learn to master it. That's it. All it takes is a little bit of patience in the right place and the right time.
Bam, there it is. This is the More in Common podcast, y'all. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson. Thank you again, Zach, for these last 2 weeks of conversation, sharing your open and honest reflections with us, and we hope you all enjoy.